3-2.
Second verse, same as the first.
Yeah.
Anyway, we couldn't come up with an opener.
We'd just been staring at each other for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just couldn't. Yeah. I mean, normally we come up with nice, groovy little ideas.
Yeah, we got snappy things like electricity's flowing. Like it's like let's rock and roll, and it just. Part of our theory is we were talking about this off air, off camera, off audio. I don't know what
we don't have cameras yet.
Yeah.
So.
Off podcast maybe is the better way. That doesn't sound right, but whatever. Anyway, so we're talking about how COVID has really broken kind of people in general, and it feels like we're not doing any better as a culture, as a country, as a community, as
a world. Really, I mean, everything just seems kind of broken and. Unfixable? I don't know. I mean, it is fixable, but it's just that's the feeling.
I think the fixing part would require people to kind of step out of themselves and go, "Yeah, we're messed up right now. We need to get better." And that would require everyone to kind of step back and go, we need to get better. We're gonna. And I don't know if some people I don't think want to or care to. I don't know. That's a deep
dive into different stuff that we don't really want to talk about.
Different cultural conversation.
But, I mean, that's kind of interesting. It kind of ties into like. You think of like sci-fi books in general.
Yeah.
And a lot of times like they tend to have this hopeful, more upbeat version of the future. Yeah. Even Dune in its own way, because it has darker themes in there. But Dune in its own way is like humanity survived a whole bunch of horrible things. Yeah. Including the Butlerian Jihad where all the robots rised up and whatever. Yeah. But it's kind of like all sci-fi depended on humanity kind of getting along and rising above and everybody's getting educated, smarter, and we're moving on these upward curves. Yeah. But it just seems like COVID just kind of like ripped that hopeful lid off. Yeah. And now we're just staring at it's like now everybody just seems to be so
very nihilistic.
Yes. Like let's destroy everything and make it. It's like no, you don't want to do that.
It's there used to be a Twitter. I think there still is a Twitter account called Nihilist Arby's or Arby's Nihilist or whatever, and it's like nothing matters, eat Arby's. So there you go. That's your
I like that.
It does feel a little nihilistic at times.
Maybe we should. Do you want to go get Arby's after this? My treat. We can just.
I wouldn't mind Arby's at this point.
Fine. Okay. Deal. That's lunch date after recording today.
Let's go eat. Let's go celebrate.
Everybody else out there that's listening to you, all 12 of you, whoever you are,
eat Arby's.
Yeah.
The non-sponsor sponsor.
Yeah, they're not a sponsor to us, even though they made. Like I used to play Dungeons & Dragons stuff. Not so much anymore. I'm still trying to form that idea. Maybe I can convince some of you guys locally to play. But they had gaming dice that were like Arby's themed gaming dice.
Someone at Arby's was a D&D player and broke into the R&D department and like convinced them you need to do this.
But yeah, they had sets of dice and I wanted one so bad because it's so weird and quirky. But they were like disappeared so fast.
They disappeared so fast.
I guess nerds like Arby's.
Hold on. Arby's, Dungeons, and Dragon Dice. Okay, it's coming up on Google. Yeah, it's a thing. Hey, you can get it at Arby's Shop.
Huh.
ArbyShop.com. Are you ready for this?
Do they have them in stock?
By popular demand, Arby's Dice are here. Take Arby's. Oh, sold out.
Oh, see, that's what I was.
And it's legit. If you Google it, it's out there. Arby's D&D Dice. Oh man, that's hilarious.
Like I wanted them. For like just for the weird randomness of like, here's my roast beef dice.
Yeah, they started it in August 2021. They're sold out, but maybe they'll come back again.
Maybe.
We'll see.
I mean, if they flew off the shelves that fast, it's like, come on, make some more kooky things.
There we go. And on that delightful bombshell, we'll be right back with our what is going to be sure to be an entertaining and terrifying drive through Dune 1984 and Dune 2021. Yeah. So buckle in, hold on to something. It's going to be an interesting, exciting adventure. Dune is coming up next here on Nerds by Screenlight Podcast. Strap in, hold on, and get ready.
Get nerdy with me. Talk nerdy to me. Get nerdy with me. All I really need for you to do is just please.
I get so.
Talk to me. Talk nerdy to me.
So.
Well, it's good. I watched it a while ago, and my don't really have my notes, but it was all in my brain, ready, fresh then, and now don't have it anymore.
Well,
I didn't want to re-rent it. Are we recording right now?
Yes.
Oh, we're live. Okay.
We're live.
Well, I'm
live
sorry,
from
folks. I didn't
studio.
want to re-rent it, and so like I usually watch I kind of gather information and read articles earlier in the week, and then I watch them.
Yeah.
And that's how I've been kind of prepping for these things, so I can see kind of different things.
I repeatedly didn't do my homework, and then I kept putting us off because I had stuff going on.
Yeah, see, some of this ties into what we just talked about at our little beginning segment.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like,
COVID is kind of, I think it's just a COVID culture situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dune. So I forgot about the Dune 2000 TV series.
Last night, well, I wanted to mention them when we were talking with Dallas.
Yeah.
But like because there's Dune and then Children of Dune, which happened on Sci-Fi, which are amazing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was just kind of one of those things. It's like, it got forgotten in the mix.
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
Well, it's kind of like that RoboCop TV series. Like, I had forgot about it until we started talking RoboCop, and I was like, oh my gosh, RoboCop got a TV series. I forgot about that. It's an interesting TV series. Dune, the TV series, was out, in 2000?
Yeah, I believe so.
So I do need to explore that because I have not. So last night I watched Dune 1984 and then I watched Dune 2021. That is my first time ever watching the Dune movies in any capacity. I had just recently finished the book Dune, like about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And so this was like my first foray into the world.
Well, I would say after reading the book, you could see, like, when they tried to make that book into a movie, the difficulty of trying to translate.
Well, and so, that's like my overall feeling with 1984 as we get into this. It's directed by David Lynch, who is like a legend, right?
Yeah, he's amazing.
I didn't feel that way about this movie.
Well, I can tell you why.
Okay.
Because this is one of the things I learned, like, doing Lynch. He didn't want to do the movie.
Well, there you go.
It was one of those kind of things, like I think we talked about it in the Ghostbusters Bill Murray kind of thing. It was a tit for tat kind of thing where it's like, I want to do this, well, we don't want it, we want to do this for us.
Yeah.
And so they kind of shoved that at him because like the popularity of Star Wars and everything else was taking off at the time, and they saw a chance to do something else because they already pitched the Jodorowsky one before this, whatever. That failed because the budget went crazy, but whatever. And so they kind of pitched this at Lynch to get him to do some of his, like, we'll fund some of your other things down the lane if you do this for us. So he went in and kind of took it on his own because he didn't really want to fall into the sci-fi thing. That's why if you look at his body of work, he does a lot of like psychological, based in real life kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden there's this weird Dune.
Right.
This doesn't make any sense.
And that's like that. Like it doesn't make any sense. A lot of this movie and the choices that were made, just kind of. I sat there and I was like, what? Why? Why would you? Who? Yeah. Now keep in mind, I had seen like the trailer for 2021, but I had not watched it yet. So I went in. I said, I need to watch 1984 first because I have a feeling I'm going to love 2021. Yeah. Spoiler alert, I did. But like 1984, like. Here's the thing. The opening scene with the stars and then reverse on the narrator.
Oh,
like,
Irulan? Yeah. Speaking to us.
Front loading like crazy. Like we get so much front loaded. Like we know immediately within the first whatever, like when the Emperor shows up and they bring in the navigator.
Yeah, that is cool.
Creepy. And the effects on that is brilliant.
Well, he spent a lot of time trying to make things like in his own weird way, kind of like. Because like they mentioned in the books how the spice does stuff to you, whatever. But they don't really describe that. Yeah. Herbert doesn't.
Yeah.
He says it does mutate you a little bit. He does in the later books. Then you learn there's flippers and whatever. But anyway, Lynch just said, "Here it is."
Right. Yeah. and the practical effects when it's not green screen. The practical effects are legit. Like they really, really like the throne room is legit. Like it's really awesome when the navigator leaves. Well, so when they show up, when the navigator shows up, there are people who are vacuuming the floor.
Yeah, you see like the oil spilling out of the tank.
Well, I didn't see that. I missed that part. So then I was like, well, why are they vacuuming the floor? And then when the navigator retreats, you see the oil on the floor, and you go, there's a reason why they're vacuuming. Yeah. Which is interesting that because they're like, they were never here. And I'm like, well, you better get to vacuuming that whole mess you just left because there's evidence that they were here.
Well, also, it's kind of like, it's a good way of showing like the dynamic of the universe that we get to see, like Herbert lays out for us in the book, where it's like the Spicing Guild, even though they don't have any titles, whatever, are probably the most important things in existence right now. And then here in the movie, we get I can come into the Emperor's throne room,
Right.
kind of dump a bunch of garbage on the floor,
Right.
and then walk out,
Right.
and nothing's going to happen to me.
Right. It did feel like, because in the books it makes it feel like, at least in the first book, it felt like the Emperor had power. Like everyone is scared of this man. Like
Well, I mean, yeah, in the book you get it because like the Sardaukar is elite warriors.
Right.
And stuff,
But then when you in the movie you have the navigators just kind of walking in. It also speaks to the power of the navigators.
Yep.
Like, but the character that they had playing the Emperor, he wasn't all that impressive.
No, I didn't feel very like
Yeah.
threatening from
Yeah,
him.
he was just kind of there. He's like a wet noodle. I'm like, okay, bud, like you gotta scare me. Like you gotta make me like Darth Vader, Emperor, like Grand Moff Tarkin. Like you gotta scare the pants off me. Let's go. And it was just like he's just kind of there.
Yeah, I think that like he just threw around the title as like Emperor in the movie. To
Yeah.
like, all right, an Emperor is someone who's super, super powerful.
Yeah.
But we do see him kind of get put in his place in the very first scene with him.
Yeah.
And we don't really get to see anything else come out from that.
Right.
And it's like we should have seen the Emperor, like, if we were going to do that kind of thing, the Emperor command some people and they just like
Right.
jump to
and they run and they run.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there wasn't really there. The design of the Emperor's planet, the brief glimpse that we get is.
Yeah.
It was okay. I wasn't really impressed with the design of the Emperor's planet. The costumes are very black.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't like them particularly. Like they were almost like too much black latex, like Catwoman. And it just was like, is this okay? All right, this is okay.
Well, are we talking about the Guilders
Yeah.
outfits, or are we talking about the Emperor's?
Emperor's outfits. The guild was really cool. I liked their look. Like it was very
Very kind of, yeah.
yeah.
All right. Because the Emperor's the people around him tend to be more frou-frou-y. Like Virginia Madsen in her fantastic dresses and stuff as Irulan.
Yeah.
She was a crush of mine when I was younger, too.
I think
That's an admission, I'll admit.
You'll admit it. She is like they did select like the actresses they chose for 1984. Like yes, Virginia, she's very beautiful. You're like wow, she's very striking. The same with how when they selected Sean Young for Chani, like she's very striking.
Yeah, at the time, both of them were at like their peaks of like, hey, we're the it girls.
Yeah. The container is incredible. The container for the Navigator is legit.
Yes.
The practical effects of that sucker and how it just looks, and it's imposing, and it's big, and you're just like, what is inside there?
Yeah, and when he kind of floats forward, because you see it roll up, and it's like, what is in that tank?
Yeah, and there's that mystery of like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know who this is. And it's very interesting how they play that. I really like that. I said, dear God, that's an ugly alien.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote on my notes. But again,
I'll admit it gave me nightmares. But it's again, it's kind of like it was supposed to freak you out.
Right, and the job accomplished, mission done. You got it. Check that off the box. The whole front loading the exposition like crazy in the beginning of this movie from the narrating to the Emperor scene, I was not happy. I was just like, come on, you are telling me more than you are showing me.
Yes, see, that's always an issue with these kind of things, though, because like you can see. I don't know, how do we want to do it? Like, he was given a limited time frame to do the whole movie.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I think the exec says we want 2 hours, 16 minutes. And you need to give us 2 hours, 16 minutes. And you need to get the whole thing in there. So it's like, how do you explain everything?
Right. Well, and that's part of, so we can flip back and forth between 2021 and this one.
Yeah, it's
so
just like a weakness.
In 2021, they definitely tell more of the story.
Yep.
In 1984, they hop, skip, and the jump.
Oh yeah,
like we don't even see the fight between Paul and the guy to establish dominance. We don't see any of that. We don't understand who he is to Chani. Like none of it's just like, and over 2 years this happens. It's like, okay, montage. I'm sorry,
yeah,
what?
Well, it's because he was trying to explain things in a slower pace,
right?
And then he realized I don't have the time,
right? And that's what it felt like because it was just like this weird pacing where I'm like, okay, look, you got a movie, you got to start movieing sometime soon. Like let's get this story going. And it's just like it is dragging.
Yeah, well then, I mean, look at our last sequence of the 1984 version of it, where it's kind of like Paul joins the Fremen, and then from there it's just kind of like montages of fight,
Yeah.
end scene,
yeah.
Movie's done. It's kind of like, all right,
Yeah.
so something happened here.
Yeah. We shifted into third, and we sped through that plot hole like a bat out of hell.
When your last 25 minutes or so is just montage,
right.
Basically. It's kind of like, ugh, what happened?
Yeah, something went wrong here. So let's see what else here. So Holy Patrick Stewart.
Did you see that beautiful mullet on that man?
I did not see him in this movie. Well, no, he didn't have a mullet in this movie.
And when he comes back later in the movie, in the sand, he's got a full-on mullet.
Okay,
it is magnificent. I laughed. I cracked up.
I must have missed the mullet on him because I was so focused on him being back. But here's the thing about Patrick Stewart. After seeing him in Star Trek, in seeing him in Dune, I couldn't separate him from Picard here. Because that voice is Picard.
Oh yeah,
that is.
Well, his voice is so iconic.
Yeah, and so it's very hard for me. And he acts very much like Picard would. There's no difference in how he's portraying the character. And obviously, this is before Next Generation. Correct?
Yes, it is.
So that was an element of me going, okay, well, it's Patrick Stewart, but he plays the character really well.
Well, I mean, he's got a certain just gravitas to himself that he carries everywhere into every role he brings. Yeah. Even Professor X in those X-Men movies, which are, but I mean, he has his character comes through just so well.
Yeah, I agree. The shields in the fighting sequences,
goofy, right?
No, bad.
You know those were all hand done by animators, secondary.
That makes me really sad
because that's what they had to do. To try and show you what the shields look like.
That's crazy.
It is maddening to think of there's poor animators that are dealing with the film thing and then having to draw. That's why they all look boxy, because it's the best they could do to kind of cover the whole angles and everything of the people.
That's bonkers. It's disappointing to me because it is a very cool part and a dynamic of the world building that they all have shields and they activate them, but the shields cannot prevent certain things.
Yeah, it's here to explain to you guys, because they kind of don't really explain stuff to you too well in the movies.
Oh, no, they do not.
But in the book, they do.
Yeah.
The shields work by, if anything is a certain speed, like fast speeds, it'll bounce off the shields.
Yep.
Slower moving things can move through those shields.
Yep.
That's why you see all these people it's a futuristic world, but they have knives and swords. Because they can slow down the blade to slide through the shield and stab the guy.
Yeah.
Once you're kind of through the shield, you can do a quick little jab and get them.
Yeah.
But on top of that, there are lasers, and you see them, and they look awesome.
Yeah.
But if a laser hits a shield, there is a reaction that happens where both things blow up.
Yeah.
So it doesn't benefit to just kind of laser everything down with your super powered lasers, because if you hit a shield, then you die and they die.
Yeah.
And everybody around both of you dies too.
Mutually assured destruction.
So that's kind of a concept that I wanted to touch on last time, but we didn't get to it because it was kind of important to be there's a reason why they're just not firing lasers at everybody.
Right. Well, and I think it's also cool of how he built that world of because you always worry about if you create too much of a powerful thing in your story, then it's we can't. Now we've put ourselves into a corner. How do we explain how they get past the shield? And with this, it's the shield isn't the solve all. The shield is a safety kind of net to help protect you, but you also have to know how to fight.
Yep.
And we get that later when Paul's fighting with his it's not with his main trainer, but his secondary trainer. And he's learning. He's being you have to be ready. You have to always be ready. The shield can't save you all the time.
I think that was it Duncan or Gurney?
I think it was Dunky.
Dunky.
Oh boy,
it's okay.
It's early in a Monday.
I usually get them mixed up a bit in my head too. Who's Gurney? Who's Duncan?
Right.
And I don't know why, but it just happens to me.
Well, they play similar.
I know one is more military. That's your Duncan.
Yeah.
He's your straight-laced guy.
Yeah.
And then you have Gurney, who's your. I don't know. I always joke around to my friends. I call him Space Bard.
Yeah.
He's more lanky and kind of soft or whatever, but he's still a fighter.
Yeah.
But he sings songs and recites poetry and whatever.
Yeah, it's because they're so similar, but they're also very different. It's a bonkers thing.
Yeah.
Dean Stockwell is in this movie. He is so young in this movie.
Yes.
Oh boy, and it's interesting because he played the mentor character in not Sliders, Quantum Leap.
Yeah, Quantum. I was with
he
Quantum
was in
Leap,
Quantum Leap, and so it's really cool to see him here. The uniforms are interesting. They're green, very green.
Yeah,
but there's this weird thing that I couldn't quite figure out. They have almost like a Nazi kind of element to them.
Yes,
with how the emblems are placed, and considering that these are the good guys that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It seemed like a very uncomfortable.
I think it's just Lynch's take on showing military authority.
Right.
Because when you saw Nazi figures wearing those types of detailed, finely cut, uniforms like that.
Right.
boom, figure of authority.
Right.
He has some sort of power,
Right.
or his word carries weight.
Yeah, I was just uncomfortable with it. I was just like, what in the world?
Because, I mean, Lucas used that as well, that kind of imagery as well in the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, but it wasn't so blatant.
Yeah, it wasn't as polished up as Yui's uniform. And
Yeah, I just was like, oh my God, like this is, why are you, no, stop this.
No, I mean, spoilers?
Yeah,
I mean, it could also be maybe a Lynch's hint at, like, here's a bad guy.
right,
Even though he doesn't appear to be, because
Right.
remember, he's the sleeper agent.
right.
Bad guy.
Yeah, I still wasn't comfortable with it. I can't let that one go because it's just like, that was intentional. And in 1984, like, you had to know better. Like, you had to know what you were doing with that. This isn't like the 60s.
Like, if you pull apart any of Lynch's stuff, he does things with purpose.
Yeah.
And he doesn't always, he almost never fully explains himself.
It, yeah.
It's like he leaves it up to your interpretation, because that's what he says. As your part as the viewer,
Yeah.
you need to do that job.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the visuals.
Yeah.
You figure it out and take your own interpretation.
Yeah.
Which is why I love him, but whatever.
Most of the music in this movie is brilliant.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love this. One of the redeeming qualities of Dune 1984, is the music. It is at times very much on point.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like, okay, whoever they did, because I was worried in the credit scene, it said like with music from Toto, and I was like, don't you dare,
Yeah.
don't you pull a Ghostbusters 3 or Ghostbusters 2, don't pull a Ghostbusters 2 on me, don't give me some, or like Ghostbusters 2, and then what, Batman Returns,
Yeah.
or Batman when
Batman with Prince. Yeah.
don't do that, and they didn't.
No.
It's the end theme at the end with the credits, I think.
Yeah, with the
Is-
waves and everything crashing.
with Toto
and then they
coming.
hit the perfect note, like when Paul gets on the sandworm for the
Yeah.
first time, and
Yeah.
there's that heroic kind of
Yeah.
guitar riff.
Yeah.
That is a great moment where it's
Yeah.
like, yes!
Yeah.
It's like it kind of hammers home, like this moment is massive.
It's huge. It's a big deal. Richard Jordan is another character actor that's in this movie. So there are a lot of cool character actors in the movie. You're just like, I know that face from like years later now. I got a kick out of it. So I made notes: the Fayed, the second moon, the Nightmare, Usul. So here's the thing: Lynch tries to bring a lot of what happens in the book where the characters are thinking inside their heads.
Yes.
And he does it so literally.
Yeah, that's why all the inner monologues happen.
And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's not cohesive.
Yeah.
It's jarring. It's literally just like, okay, what are we doing? Why are we like? I need you to pick a speed. I made a note, like we swerved into Jessica, like we're intercutting between his inner thoughts, Paul's inner thoughts, and then we're into Jessica, and then we're back. It's just like, movie, pick a speed.
Yep.
Pick a direction and stick with it, please.
Yep.
Could you please? Now, Jessica's haircut is in the Blade Runner sequel. One of the characters had a similar haircut.
Yes.
To her, and I liked it. I was like, this is kind of cool. This is different. I know Jessica's is unique. I know her.
Well, I mean, we get that description of her book where it's kind of like she is this statuesque,
Yeah.
tall, gorgeous woman
Yeah.
that, I mean, even has the bad guys kind of chasing her. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, all right, get it. But, I mean, he's also trying to bring back Regal, because that was like a hairstyle, I believe, way back in history here on our planet.
Yeah.
I forget what time period it came from. But, yeah, like a lot of the style for hair and uniforms and stuff, he kind of Lynch grabbed that from history and like threw
Yeah.
it up there.
It works. It works for Jessica. The voice is an interesting dynamic.
Oh yeah,
It's played well in this movie. Like I was okay with it.
I mean, I think Denis Villeneuve even used the same kind of thing where it's like that must make their vocals a little weird. and it shows the power of the voice.
And so that works for me. I made another note about this. This is when it's happening with he's being tested. I said the music is just sublime. It's the strongest element so far.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed this.
The voice. We didn't really explain it. The voice is something that the Bene Gesserit can do.
Yep, they can command people to do things.
Because they can't do it immediately, which you get that out of the book, because it's like Jessica, like she talks about, there's little moments where she talks about it takes a little bit of time to kind of adjust and get ready for that person.
Yep.
Based on how you can read them.
Yeah.
And then you can change and use your voice to project it
Yeah.
at that person and kind of command them. Strong-willed folks or people that are trained in the voice can resist it.
Yeah.
But like your regular baseline grunt person is just going to be like, he'll, like you say, grab that cup of water.
Yeah.
Well, he's just going to grab that cup, and then he'll soon realize, oh, why did I grab that cup?
Yeah.
But a stronger person would fight against, like, don't try to use the voice against me.
Yeah, exactly. We get a mention of the water of life. The problem I have with this movie is that so many elements from the book that are deep and intense and require explanation and meaning.
Yeah.
This movie just kind of grabs them and then just runs away.
Here it is.
Yeah, here it is. But back I go. It's like a run by fruiting. It's like, okay, now we're gone.
Yeah.
Getty Prime, young Brad Dourif.
Yes.
Wormtongue.
Brad Dourif is amazing.
I was like, what is happening? And what's interesting is there are elements of his Wormtongue performance in this performance. Mm-hmm. And you just go, oh, that's where it came from. Oh, I know it now. Like, it's like, I was just like, oh, I love having him on screen. And his hair and his eyebrows.
Those huge eyebrows, yes. Like those stick with you.
Yeah. You wait for him to come back on stage. You're like, oh. I would have liked to have seen him more. Obviously.
And his weird little hand motions and things like that he does.
Yeah. He's a strange one, but it's like that enriches the story. You're like, there's a story here. I want to know more. Spoiler alert, unfortunately, he dies.
Yeah.
Which I get it. Like, it works.
I figure most of you have probably at least seen one of the movies or read the books before you're listening to this. So
hopefully, if you haven't, spoiler alert, you should have.
Yes, yeah. So I think maybe we're safe with dropping spoilers, but it's whatever.
It's been, what, 50, 40, 30, many years since Dune was first published.
Yeah.
And the movie from 1984 has been around for a while, and it's 2022. You should have seen Dune already.
Yeah.
Okay. Sting. Oh.
What were you doing here?
I don't know what he was in this movie, why he was in this movie. Was it just because he needed in the 80s, he needed a...
I wasn't able to find, maybe I did, but I can't remember now, why he was in this movie. But he was in this movie.
He was, for a minute or two.
He got to play a bad guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh. Yeah, I was like, okay, that's different. The pug dog. Why do we have a pug?
I know the answer to this.
Please do. Tell me
Because you actually see this in the Emperor's throne room when all the people are clearing out, or even when they get the shots of the throne room, you see the huge amount of bulldogs and stuff around them. It used to be a sign of royalty and power, like how much money and wealth you had to have these weird kind of exotic breed pets.
Okay.
So it's like the Emperor has his huge, I don't know, I think maybe 8 or whatever bulldogs or whatever with him.
Yeah.
In House Atreides, you see the pug.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of like, all right, here's a kind of like a toy pet animal, which all it is upkeep. There's no real benefit to having this animal.
Gotcha.
It's just a symbol of power.
Okay.
And it used to be that way back in the day for royalty too. It's like, I have these weird exotic pets that I can just throw money on and it's cool. So that's why you have that dog. And it's a little throwaway thing that Lynch threw in there just to kind of tie back to those old royalty things. It's not a really big thing, but that's why it's there.
Okay, even better. So they depart from Caladan. This folding space process is wild.
Oh, the weird floating thing that barfs up a beam of light?
This is not...
Well, the Guild Navigator.
This is not well done at all. I get what they were trying to do.
Well, I mean, it's 1984 graphics.
I know, but
we had to suck it up for other movies as well at this time. The terrible effects. Especially when you're going for something as kind of how do you visualize folding space?
I was wholly unimpressed. I was like, okay, wild, weird, I don't understand.
Well, I get it because I kind of get it because I'm thinking about it from knowledge of afterwards and reading the books and everything else like that, and then just watching the movie and kind of paying attention. Remember in that opening thing where they showed you the pictures of the planets, what they look like?
Yeah.
Well, its first barf beam opens up a picture of the Caladan.
Yeah.
And then the second barf beam that it shoots out opens up a picture of Arrakis.
Right.
So it's him kind of connecting dots, and then boom, we transfer.
I could have done without the barf beam. Here's the thing though, in the 2021 version, all they do is they just show us it happening.
Oh yeah, he just cut he cut it out.
Well, he doesn't, and that's okay. I'm okay with that because, the way that it's explained is they have the massive cylinders, but the way that I interpreted it is the cylinders is where the space is folded. Yeah. So you go into one cylinder or one opening, it's
and then you pop out.
You pop out the other and that's where the folding space happens.
Yeah.
And as
that's the way he does it.
And I like that because it doesn't require me to have to be like, what is happening?
Well, I mean, it's because the other thing is Lynch was trying to do what happens in the books.
Right.
You attach to a big space guildy ship.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they mentioned Class 3 ship or something like that, which is the bigger hauler ones in the book, but they have smaller ones. And then it moves that whole ship and everything inside it to the new location.
Yeah.
Which Villeneuve just kind of skirts around that.
Yeah.
And just shows the giant tube, as you said.
Yeah.
And it's like a gateway. I like that gateway idea too, but then I'm wondering, like in the second movie,
how are they going to represent?
How are you going to represent the Space Guild? Because he kind of skips over all of that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, that's a huge part of the book.
Right.
It's like the Space Guild and controlling space is like the most important thing. There's a reason why Dune is so important.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, if you're skipping over showing us or explaining the Spacing Guild.
Right. It may come in part 2.
Yeah.
Which we definitely need a part 2. Let's see here. Max von Sydow is Dr. Kynes.
Yes.
I was like, yes. Max von Sydow is one of the, I think he's obviously dead now, but Max von Sydow was one of the greatest actors of our time. I mean, the dude had acting chops like crazy. And I loved his kind of engagement and how he was.
Oh, yeah.
I made a note after we saw Max von Sydow. I said, Lynch likes to draw it out, and I like my movie slow moving, but this is something.
Yeah.
And not in a good way. I was just like, come the heck on. And then the CGI and green screen is just, it takes me out. Like, I know that it was, at that time, it was groundbreaking.
Clunky and weird.
But it is just,
it's one of those things is like you just kind of have to like kind of forgive it because of the time frame in which it was made. And now we get spoiled because they can do
they can do everything. I think that's part of my problem. Is I'm just like, oh. But here's the thing, though. Star Wars had better graphics than
effects. Well, they did a lot of like the little smaller models. They didn't try to do. They used a lot of. It's kind of weird how to explain it, but like in Star Wars, they used a lot of like more practically kind of weird effects instead of trying to push it like Lynch is doing with his movie. It's like let's try some screens and other types of things and projecting things, and
it didn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, love you, David Lynch. You're a fantastic director, and I could never think to even challenge you.
And Twin Peaks is amazing.
Yes, but no. The Blue Eyes is obviously green screen.
Yeah,
and that made me sad. And I get it. Like you at that time, you probably couldn't get blue contacts, and if you did, that would be a horrible experience.
It'd probably like wreck your eyes,
right? But it was just like, like you could see it. Like it was very
like
clear.
Especially like when they move their heads a little bit and the eyes don't stay.
It was painted on. Linda Hunt is our housekeeper.
Oh,
and
shout out Mapes. Yeah.
Yes, shout out. And I was like, dang, that's an awesome voice. I looked up her character. I'm like, yeah, she's been in some things. She's legit. But again, this is before they were all big and famous, I guess.
Yeah.
The hunter-seeker scene was all right. It was interesting.
That's the little mechanical assassin
that he saved shout out Mapes from.
Yeah.
The use of thoughts as narration is interesting, but overall,
he just used it too much. But I think it was like it's his way of trying to explain everything in the short amount of time he was
trying to front load your exposition like a madman.
Yeah.
So before the Duke is attacked and after the hunter-seeker scene, there are a lot of cuts. And I made a note. I said, lots of cuts here. Very confusing. Lynch! Like, I was just mad. I was like, come on. Like, what is going on here? I can't keep track. The Duke is attacked. Lots of explosions. And then Dr. Yu. And there was something that happened. Like, guys were getting shot, and there was no laser effect.
Oh, they were shooting darts.
Oh, that would have been helpful to know.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything. I just saw people shooting and then people falling.
Yeah, they had dart guns that were designed to go through shields. It's a one-liner drop-off thing that they said earlier that if you're not really paying attention, you'll completely forget it.
David Lynch.
But yeah, they were shooting darts to get through people's shields that were designed like to move like slower, ballistically slower to kind of get through the shields.
I was just like, I don't what.
Like you see it really good in the 2021 version.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Where the Duke gets hit.
Yeah,
that's kind of what they were doing, but they didn't really explain it very well in the Lynch version.
No, they didn't.
Like I said, it was a one little line kind of throwaway thing that they said and moved on.
They didn't. The end scene with the death of Brad Dourif's character was actually quite good.
Oh yeah,
like I was very impressed in how they showed his. Yeah. That was really fun. The flashbacks are weird as heck. Like I don't know what was going. I know he was trying. I know that Lynch was trying.
Because how do you, like when Paul starts having his gets really really exposed to the spice? Yeah. How do you show off all right, this guy's getting glimpses of the future and the past, and it's confusing
Yeah.
him. But I mean, in the book, it kind of makes sense. But in like the movies, how do you explain that?
Yeah.
Where it's like, how do you show that Paul is like starting to see stuff that no one else knows and sees the paths ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm with you 100%. Those visions, some of those vision things, it's kind of like, this is weird.
I don't know what's going on. And I like to know what's going on in a movie, and I like to think I can try and interpret it. God, no. The chase scene is something. And I don't know what chase scene I'm talking about. I think when they were like escaping or whatever.
In the ornithopter?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, the ornithopters, I don't really understand them in the 1984 version. Like, they're not really shown as to how they work. And so that took me out of the movie.
I think, if I remember right, he just made them kind of like little flying car things without the wings that they're supposed to have.
Yeah, I was just like...
So it's just kind of like, all right, whatever.
It feels like we're trashing poor David Lynch, but the reality of it is that it's a movie from 1984. Like, there's also great movies from '84 that didn't. Maybe it's because of the material. Like, you can't try to do Dune in 1984 with technology.
And you only have 2 hours and 16 minutes in which to do it all.
Well, and that's the note I made. So, the uncomfortable sting with steam. Nope. I said skip. Aaliyah is born. Aaliyah, whatever Aaliyah's name.
Aaliyah the knife. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was an interesting kind of. But again, it was very brief. Yeah. Like, we just get this slapdash kind of thing. And
then you get the monologue that explains what was happening to her.
Right. So they try to cram so much in this movie. It's moving fast. So now and then it has him and Chani. They got to have relations. Yeah. They got to kiss and all those things. And I said,
because this is when the montage section starts.
The montage madness. And so I made a note. I said at this point they had 38 minutes to the end of the movie.
Yeah. And this is our montage.
And we've already got him and Chani like together. They're not married. They never get married. Yeah. But they're together. I'm like,
see, this is kind of like, what was the point? It hit me in my head when I was watching the second one, the new one. Yeah. The movie cuts off when he crash lands, gets with the Fremen. Yeah. Movie chops off. Yeah. If we go back to the 1984 one, about the time they crash land, get with the Fremen, and then the montage starts. Yeah. Because he's just running out of time and he's got to cram so much more into this to get to the end.
Yeah, and so like 38 minutes to the end of the movie, then he conquers the worm. Yeah. At this point in the 1984
guitar
version.
riff, magical.
And I was like, man, we are moving fast. There's a point where the green screen comes back to haunt us with the worm. Yeah. And it's just disappointing.
Awkward practical effects too.
And I made the note about how we get some kind of rock thing. It didn't take me out of the movie because you're talking about the guitar riff. Like, it didn't take me out of the movie. It just felt really out of place because up until this point we'd had a classic orchestra, symphony, like standard soundtrack, which was great. And all of a sudden it's like, now we're gonna do a rock riff. Like, I didn't fault it. I wasn't like, this is terrible, I'm taking out the movie.
No, that's fine.
But it was just because
I enjoyed it because it was kind of like, bam, you know.
But we hadn't had it before. Yeah. And I think that's to your point. You're like, we hadn't had it before. This is the moment. This is where it begins. Yeah. But the problem for me is I don't have any of this before. Like, not even a hint. Like, if you had like a hint where he was having his flashbacks where he had like a little bit of a guitar strumming,
that'd be cool.
Okay, that's teasing it. And then
when he has his future visions.
And then there's like as the story goes, it grows. It starts to grow, and you go, "Ooh, what is that sound? I'm hearing a guitar. I haven't heard that before. It's only when Paul's on screen, and only when Paul's having a thing. Okay, I'm listening for it now. And then when he gets on the worm, and bam, that's like, okay, victory. But they don't. They just kind of throw it in there, and it's like as a literature guy. I watched this guy on YouTube. He's a really, really smart, legit dude. Hold on, let me find his YouTube account because he is. Sideways music. Okay, so his YouTube account is Sideways 440, and he basically takes apart movies and musicals.
Didn't you tell me about this guy?
Yeah,
he studies it through music.
Yeah, he says why the music. He said one of his videos is why the music in Cats 2019 is worse than you thought. It has 3.8 million views. He has a video about. Like why the music in Les Miserables is worse than you think, and it pretty is. It's 2.2 million views, and so he does a lot of conversation about music, and like leitmotifs and all these things that I have no understanding of, but he explains it in a way that I get. Yeah. And so his YouTube account is youtube.com Sideways 440. and he is a legend. He makes about music, and he's pretty awesome. And so I would love to see him take this particular element and dig into it, because I'm pretty sure he would agree with me and be like, yeah, no, you build like you see it in Star Wars, you see it in all the major ones, where there's elements of the theme that kind of interlace in those moments, and then when you get to that moment, then it goes full, and you're like, yes, this is satisfying, this makes sense, this is better than I was,
I mean, also in the Villeneuve version, we got Hans Zimmer behind the music, so you're not gonna top.
No, you're probably not. Let's see what else here. And now we get some kind of rock thing. What are my other notes? Okay, that last shot was impressive. I think with the last shot with the worms, I think. Yeah. And it was like where was that? Like, that's what I wanted. That's what I needed this whole time. And then attacking the spice, montage time. And so they're starting to bring the pressure, because they're gonna bring the Emperor and the Baron back. And I said that was again fast. 20 minutes to Dune. Yes. 20 minutes to the end. Like, we've got what is happening. The worms and what they do is very confusing. Yes. I'm not going to lie to you. In 1984, I could not understand what their purpose was.
I mean, you read the book, so you'd get it. But
but it presented solely as a movie without. I mean, you should be able to get a sense of how they operate in this film. You don't. I don't get it. Like, it's like this. It's like we talk about fight scenes in like Batman movies, or we talk about fight scenes in movies. If you have a good stunt coordinator or a great stunt coordinator, and you have a great eye for how it should go, makes sense. Like, there shouldn't be these flash cuts where I'm like, I don't know who's hitting who. It should be very clear. One shot, like, it's this guy's hitting here, this guy's hitting here, this is working. That's a lot of the criticisms that get.
That's the one time I really noticed that trend happening was with the first Matt Damon Bourne movie. Yeah. Some of those fights where it's just kind of like blurry, messy.
Shaky cam and all that other stuff. And it's like, no, show me what's happening. I want to see this fight. I want to see the pain. Like the scene in Mission Impossible where there's the Mission Impossible scene, but there's also the James Bond where he's in the bathroom. And he puts the guy's head through a sink or something. Yeah. Like, that's incredible. That's filmmaking. You're like, oh, we see it. You're not hiding it from us. You're not showing him, throwing him towards the sink and then moving the camera away. Yeah, no, you're showing us that. You are giving us the full, intense experience, and it's like, that's what it needs to be. Yeah. That's what I need to see. I'm just
for the fans at home that probably haven't watched or read or understand how the worms work. The worms are part of a cycle that create the spice. Yeah. So that's why they're so important. That's why those big worms are kind of really important to be there.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's how I'm going to explain it, because I mean, I would go into the nitty-gritty, baby worms, explosions of spice, but I'm not. It's just big worms make spice. Yeah. Happy times on Arrakis. Yeah.
There you go. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. God bless us all. God bless us, everyone. Yeah. So the shots of the moment where there's the crowd is outside the outside the building. That's effective. Yeah. Now, I know it's probably a matte painting and it's probably effect driven. Yeah. But it works. I'm like, oh, everyone's gathered. This is the crowd. This is the big moment. The final battle with blade to blade is interesting, and I appreciated it. The death of the Baron felt ish. Yeah. It was just like, okay. Well, it was weird.
It's good. It's their way of just moving the big bad guy off screen. Right. Who Paul doesn't get to kill him. No. This is usually what everybody hopes for when it's like the big guy and the hero. They got to have their confrontation. Like, no. Yeah. It doesn't even happen like that in the book. Yeah. It is Aaliyah gets rid of him. Yep. Disposes of him. Yeah. And she kicks him out and he flies out, and then she flies out for a second and then she doesn't. It's this weird, I don't understand. Well, she leaves.
Well, she
we learn in the book, whatever. Right. She leaves to go, kill some Sardaukar herself and collect some trophies.
Yeah. So, but even like in that moment where like in the film where she throws him or does something to him, so he goes through the wall.
Weird little suspensor things carry him out. It's weird.
We'll talk about that in a second too.
Because remember, the Baron is a weird, disgusting man.
Yes. Well, and we'll talk about the anyway. So she throws him out. So he flies. Yeah. And then she seems to be lifted up and flying too, and then she's done. Yeah. Then she's just walking out, and I'm like, what just happened? Like you had did the atmosphere equalize?
It is a very weird
moment.
Sequence.
It's like, wait, what? You could just have her fly out. Like, don't. Okay, whatever. Yeah. So the Flying Baron in this movie is a joke. I found it not amusing. I did not find it serious, and maybe they were playing it for laughs, but it was like, I don't get why he has to be a floating baron. Like, his weight is not significant enough, and his disease is also weird because it's not really explained, like, why he has it.
I mean, in Lynch, I think this is in defense of a lot of, like, Lynch's takes on, like, bad guys.
Yeah.
To show, like, how inner corrupt and kind of crazy they are.
Yeah.
He made, like, look at the Getty Prime and everything he does on that planet when we see it in this movie. It's just weird, industrial, corrupt, like, dirty. Like, everything looks like it's been processed or put through, like, intense machinery, all that kind of thing. Like, nothing there is comfortable.
Right.
So it's like, that's why he kind of made the Baron less gross with the pox marks and stuff on his face and made him so grossly fat that he needs a dispenser to move around.
But that isn't explained. Like, I don't, like, I know from the book.
It's because he's visually trying to hammer it into you.
Well, I don't need to be hammered into my brain. I already, like, reading the book, I had an entirely different image of what his suspensor devices look like.
Yeah.
I imagine him sitting on, like, an actual suspensor device, like an actual chair or something that kept him upright and supported his weight or something.
Yeah.
But the version that we got, both versions we got, don't make like the floating, like, in 2021. Like, I was like, okay, I get it, but it's not clear.
Yeah.
And I don't know why
it's not really clear in the book either, because they say he's grossly fat.
Right.
Big man.
Yeah.
And the suspensor allows him to walk.
Right.
They don't really say it makes him float. It just helps him walk.
Right. And so the floating idea is a little weird. I don't
get
it.
But I think it's maybe getting around having, like, this, how do you picture this huge thing guy that kind of uses his feet as kind of like little pedals to move himself around. You just kind of avoid that by making it so he can float.
Yeah. Rain finally comes to Arrakis.
Yep.
And that ending works. Like, I'm like, okay. I don't think it's in the book, though, is it?
No.
No, that's not in the book.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
Let me explain that comment. Like, if you know the stuff from the book, which I'm not going to tell you because you guys should all go read the book for this.
It's good.
If it just straight up rained on Arrakis, all the spice is gone.
Yeah.
And so that ending is terrible for what it does.
Yeah.
But I mean, in movie-wise, it makes great because it shows, like, your hero has conquered everything.
Yeah, and the world is back to
and everything's good because Paul wins, and now he's like this weird godlike figure.
Right. Well, and I don't think they were aiming for a sequel with this movie.
No,
like it didn't strike me as like we're going for a second one.
No, I don't think even Lynch expected to move any further.
Yeah.
So let's give, like, the quote unquote cliche kind of hero ending. He wins. Yeah. He's now the superpower being.
Yeah.
Hooray.
Yeah. So it works. Like, 1984 is a functional movie. It's not a movie that I would watch again. I wouldn't. This is going to sound really terrible, but I wouldn't recommend people watch it because it's not. Because I think we have a definitive version, which we're going to talk about next. Yeah. Which is 2021, the 2021 edition,
which is not done yet, but whatever.
Yeah, we're part one. So the difference in how the movies start. There's class has begun.
Class has begun. I would say, though, in my opinion, it's like, go watch it just for fun because it is still kind of like a fun movie. And you can revel in kind of like all the
fun is relative,
weird symbolism that he kind of crammed in there, like Lynchisms. If you can watch Twin Peaks and stuff like that and enjoy his other movies, he does that in this movie. It's just it's sci-fi. Okay. And it's weird.
Okay.
So it's still fun.
Okay.
I mean, I still had fun. I laughed at so much of the awkwardness in it. So I had fun with it.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. I did not enjoy my 1984.
But I mean, to kind of show how
Dune.
Everybody needs to kind of develop their own ideas of stuff. Yeah. It's like, go watch it, folks.
Yeah.
And then develop your own ideas and be like, nah, I'm done with it. I don't want to see it again.
And then agree with me, and I'm always right. All right, on to 2021. So the difference in how 2021 starts, my note is more narration again, because I was like, oh, please don't do narration.
Yep.
But then I said, this one has some sound and fury to it. More power, more strong imagery. This is how you start off a movie. More show, less tell.
Yep.
The voice comes on earlier than it did before. The art style is shown versus tell. Ships have size in this film. And it starts off, and I'm just immediately drawn in. You see Dave Bautista's like whip at his side as the Harkonnens are...
the Beast Raban. Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, I'm on board with this. But they don't explain things. They don't like give you and we're going to kill Paul. Like in 1984, they're like, you need to kill Paul Atreides. Okay, cool, we'll do that. And it doesn't really drive that movie-ish. Nope. And here they don't do that. They don't give you that. Here we're gonna teleplay the whole movie for you right now.
Yeah, no. I mean, this is Villeneuve's style though, which I love.
Yeah,
like he's a different take than Lynch, where it's like he's going to, because he knows he has the budget and the time.
Yes,
like he's gonna let this movie breathe.
Exactly.
And so he's going to show you, not tell you, which irritated a lot of people.
Really.
Because they didn't understand a lot of the imagery, like the bullfighting stuff, and like when Villeneuve slowed it down to show those types of things, giving the characters time to just stand on screen, and giving you a moment to just be like, this character has a lot going on, and is thinking about some stuff.
And I love that because I'm able to see into them and go, ooh, something's going on here.
See, but a lot of people didn't like it because they thought the movie was too slow.
Well, they're wrong. And they need to go think about their choices.
Well, it's just like people that like creamy peanut butter. We've had this discussion.
Yeah, communists, all of them. And I actually had a note. I said, so much is said with the cameras holding on these characters and they're reacting.
Oh, yes.
And they're sharing glances. And you are able to go, that's when, okay, something's happening. Something's going on here. It is interesting to compare the portrayal of Paul Atreides in 1984 and 2021.
Yes.
In this movie, Paul is more of a boy.
Yes. Well, he should be.
Right. Correct.
In the book, he's 15, folks, when a lot of this happens. And then he time skips 17 at the end.
Yeah. But the dialogue is like, he's more of a boyish look in his face. What I love about the dialogue in this movie, which, again, not to try and like beat up too much on Lynch, but the dialogue is more natural and relational in this movie. Uniforms are an improvement.
Yes.
I love the imagery of the graves done differently.
Oh, yeah.
And how that's played. I said world building done right. Obviously, the shield looked better because it's 2022.
Yeah.
2021. But like, you look at how they arrange the graves and how the graves are done. It's very like different. And I'm like, okay, like I'm liking this. Like, this is cool.
Well, I mean, we didn't even get to see graves before.
No, we didn't.
I don't think even in the book they really mentioned it. Yeah. But it's kind of like, in the book, there's hints of how they honored their ancestors by carrying stuff around. Like the grandfather has kind of like a hint of the bullfighting things in there that's kind of dragged through the book.
Well, and the Duke says, look how well it worked out for him.
Yeah.
When Paul's like, well, grandfather was a bullfighter. He's like, look how well that went out for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like you kind of get that same kind of thing in seeing all the Atreides graves.
Yeah.
Like, here you go. Yeah. These people have been taking their stands and dying.
Yeah.
Because they show a lot of them. It's kind of like, whoa.
Yeah. And I love that metaphor and that imagery that you kind of go, okay, there is some significant loss in this family. Yeah. There is sacrifice. There is something there. And that's, again, the power of a story told well.
Oh, yeah.
And we've talked about this.
You get it from when Leto talks, when they're giving, like, the Emperor's emissaries there. Yeah. And he says, like, how we take it and we keep going forward. Like, I forget the exact lines, but the way he delivers that is kind of like, okay, these guys are kind of like, they're going to keep making their stands. Right. And they're not going to back down.
Well, and it's a comparison even of, like, you talk about the Emperor from the first movie.
Yeah.
The Emperor as a wet noodle in the first movie, and you compare him to Duke Atreides here, and he is, like, Duke Atreides in this film is portrayed as very Emperor, like, very powerful, very strong, very, like, you know, the Duke Atreides is a man of his word and a man of force.
And he's got a lot of things going on in his brain.
Yep.
But he doesn't tell you what it is.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a great thing too.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
I mean, they also nailed the actor's great.
Yes.
What's his name?
I couldn't tell you offhand.
I really like this actor and I can't remember his name for the life of me.
Well, that's unfortunate. Do you want me to look it up real fast?
Yes,
while we're
please.
Here? Duke Atreides.
Please. Because believe me, he deserves lots of accolades.
Duke Atreides 2021. Oh, come on. Duke Atreides, give me my numlock back. 2021. Duke Atreides, you would think I would have this information. He is portrayed by Oscar Isaac.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay, yes. Yep. Fantastic actor.
Yes, I agree.
And he does a great job of portraying the Duke.
Yes.
His time is limited.
Yes.
As we all know.
Yep.
We should know by now.
Yep.
But he does a great job of portraying this character.
Yeah. It is pretty fantastic.
And, I mean, because you get the pieces of it in the book where it's like, This is a loving, caring man that cares about everybody around him.
Yeah.
He knows that there's sacrifices that have to be made because that's the unfortunate role he's stuck in.
Yeah.
Because he has a talk with Jessica in the book where they talk about, getting away and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of one of those things like, no, I have to do this. This is what I have to follow this path.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to keep and care for everybody as much as I can as I move forward.
Yeah.
And so you get that kind of in his speech to Paul amongst the graves, where he talks about, it's like, look, maybe you'll grow into the role of leadership.
Yeah.
If you say no, whatever, to that role, that's up to you, but give it time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's a great moment. It's like, this is a man that cares.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no. And I like how they parlay it, because in the book, obviously, Duke Atreides cares about the Fremen. He cares to build that. And we see more of it in the book, obviously, of they figure out that Duke Atreides is a good man, and they want to trust him. And it's hard to do that in a movie when you have only so much time.
Yeah.
But in this movie, it works because there is the difference in how he's treated and how he treats the Fremen. You see pieces of that.
Yeah.
The Baron is Stellan Skarsgård.
Yes, I love this actor.
I love the first introduction because he's shrouded in steam.
Oh, yeah.
And you see his size, but you don't see much of him.
Yeah, his mass.
Yeah, his mass is there. So you're just like, okay, that's cool. Like you're getting a picture of what's coming.
And the glowing lights up the spine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting thing. So when the Reverend Mother arrives in the rain with the music, like there's always these ideas of like, okay, well, we're trying to go for a mood, we're trying to set a theme, we're trying to do these things, and a lot of times what movies will do is they'll just kind of throw weather at the thing as just a way to do that.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense in the plot. Like the weather
here, everything's supposed to be sad.
Right,
rain.
Yeah, rain. But in this movie, because when the Reverend Mother arrives, it fits in with the rain on Caladan, so it feels more natural. It's like you could say this is pretty heavy-handed, but Caladan is a rainy atmosphere. It's
a wet world.
Yeah, it's a wet world, and so the lights as floating things worked better in this movie. So when they're like walking through the hallways,
I like that. That was a cool effect.
And it was like it was interesting in the 84 version. It was there, but it wasn't. I didn't know what their purpose was.
Yeah,
I was like, are they just like sensors? What is it? But here it's explicitly no. They are lights to walk through the hallways with. They are your actual overhead lights. And I was like, that I appreciate. And it is a bit of tell, but it's also a bit of show, because it's like you see it enough, and the director and they're consistent enough with the floating stuff in the palace that you're like, oh, those are how they see. That's their lighting versus what we're normally used to having in our houses is our overhead lighting.
Well, I mean, it's also kind of like when the Bene Gesserit mother shows up.
Yes.
The darkness, the rain.
Yes.
It is secret. It is not out there for everybody to know.
And I said we also have less front loading and more unknown if we haven't read the book, which I said is awesome. I loved the languages, so they have different languages they use. They use sign language, and then they use Mandarin as a way to communicate secretly. Or
they use the Fremen language, which is Cho something or other. I can't remember how you pronounce it.
And I appreciate it. I said I hope they stay layered, and they do. The languages stay layered there. The Reverend Mother is presented far more terrifying in this iteration.
Oh, yes.
Like, there is a lot more dread here.
Like her face in shroud the whole time.
And what I like about this is you get a sense. So in the first movie, when Jessica comes back in and Paul is still alive, she says, "Oh, my son lives," or she's outside there and she says, "Oh, my son lives."
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool, whatever. But in this moment, in this telling, you understand her fear.
Yes.
Because she shows it, and she gets out to the door, and she's just in.
Well, she's the one that starts reciting the litany of fear.
Right. Fear is the mind killer.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And
she's the one that says it in this movie versus the other one where it's Paul and his brain.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the book, it's Paul and his brain too, saying it, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I get it, and I kind of like it.
Yeah.
But it's really nice because in the book, he does mention Jessica's fear outside the door, the room when that's taking place.
Yeah.
But Herbert doesn't really go into that much. He just kind of mentions it and then moves right on to Paul and the box and the matron.
Yeah.
In this movie, you have to see Jessica having like a panic attack.
Yeah. Knowing what could happen to her son.
Yeah, knowing that my son could be dead.
Yeah, she doesn't know if he's going to live.
Yeah.
And I like that given, and we know he'll live. Like as viewers, we know he's going to stick it out. But it's nice to see.
This isn't a George R. Martin book where it's kind of like, Paul's dead.
Like they give weight to her. They give weight to Jessica, and they give her almost agency in the situation.
Yeah, I just wish, I don't know, the actress is good. What they do with her is good. But I just don't really see her like visually as Jessica, like the one we see described in the book, where she's this tall, super gorgeous woman, whatever. I don't really see that. So like Jessica Ferguson is a beautiful woman, whatever. She's an actress, and she does a really good job portraying it. But it's like physically, I wish she would have been like that taller figure that we see from Jessica.
Well, and I think
in the book,
for me, there's the idea of she's Bene Gesserit, so there is that hidden power. There is that hidden.
The control of the body.
I could kill you if I needed to. Like you won't win this. It's interesting. The dynamic of her, the actress's. How her age looks versus Duke Atreides, because she is within the storyline, she is what they would call a concubine. Yeah. So what that means is that they had relations. They gave birth to Paul. They never married. Yeah. Because Paul, like the rule for Duke Atreides is that he would remain single for the possibility of marrying into a family.
Yeah, it's political bargaining chips.
And so the idea of her being younger than him, in this movie that works. Yeah. Because she does have that younger face. You're like, okay, she could easily be like maybe 10 years younger than the Duke, who's probably like 40, whatever. And that would explain how that had worked. Yeah. Within 1984, it is not a dynamic. Yeah. Because she has that same age kind of look as the Duke and stuff like that. So I think within the 2021 version, I actually appreciate it because it gives us the understanding that this relationship is different, but it still works because he loves her and he cares for her.
I mean, because they even mentioned the whole marriage thing, whatever. Yeah. And it's kind of important. Like they don't go into it in either movie very well, but it's like how their dynamic was. Yeah. They just kind of gloss over that, the whole concubine wife thing. Right. And because it's very important in the book because it is that political chip.
Right. Within the world building, they have it isn't played for like it isn't uncomfortable within the Atreides line. Yeah. It just is a dynamic that's there. Yeah. So the Reverend Mother line about interesting. The gob jabber is shifted to whatever it's called. Is shifted to a different design because in the 1984 version it's like a little thimble pin thing. Yeah. With the hook in this movie now it's just a little like a needle. Yeah. Which I think works. It's interesting that in the 1984 version they said this needle will kill you if you're an animal. Yeah. And in this version, no, that doesn't. They don't say that. Which I was like, okay, well, whatever.
That's kind of like their play in like the wording which she's using when she's talking to him.
Yeah.
You know, it's because like if he acts like an animal, stab, dead.
Right. So I was okay with it not being with the absence. Good showing without telling with Jessica's pain. It helps us understand the reality of what could happen to Paul. Mm-hmm. Fear is the mind killer comes back, that line. I love how like we get the sense that Paul is in pain, but then there's a change that happens. Yeah. And I wrote Paul is unstoppable in this moment. This helps us understand his power far better than we did in the previous film. Oh, yeah. Lots of cuts and imagery that enhances this moment. Powerful stuff. The My Boy Lives, which she doesn't say, which I wish she had. Yeah. Would have had far more meaning here, because if like he had pulled his hand out, or she had asked him, and she had been outside the door, and she was like, and she could sense, my boy lives. Yeah, like that moment, I was just hoping for it. I didn't get it. Yeah, and it's okay. Like life goes on, but it's just like,
but I mean, it's also there's that good dynamic where. Like you talked about it, like you did mention it. It was like the imagery, and Paul seeming unstoppable or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like when he's going through pain, and you see him kind of like cringing and folding in on himself, whatever. And the matron mother's just kind of looking at him, kind of bored. Yeah. But then the imagery happens, and you see him just look up in defiance, and you can see the anger on his face, where he's just staring at her. It's like, you're not gonna break me. Yeah. And her expression turns from just her kind of like flat look to she's terrified. Yeah. In that moment,
she now knows what has been created, and as the story unfolds in part 2, when they eventually get that filming done, and like we'll see more of that. Oh yeah, because there's more to be told there. What I love, so when the Reverend Mother leaves, Jessica stands resolute in the face of the ship. So people will be like, "Oh, well, you're just like," but when that ship leaves, like she's getting buffeted. Yeah. but she refuses to back down from Reverend Mother, even if it's her ship. Like, that stance in Jessica, I think to your point, you talked about how you wish she'd been taller. This, I think, is Villeneuve, whatever his last name is,
Villeneuve.
There we go. His way of saying, no, she is an unbreakable force.
Yeah.
She isn't just a tree you can blow over with a wind. She is like a rock, and she won't back down.
I think it's like, it ties into a lot of like what they're showing with just the Atreides people, or anybody tied to the Atreides. Anyway, it's like they are defiant.
Yeah.
They're the type of people that will stand up in your face.
Yeah. And you'll know they're resisting you.
Yes.
Because they're very clearly going to do it. The way of bending space and time is a little clearer this time around.
Yeah, we got our gate thing.
Which I love that. The entrance music with the bagpipe was a nice touch.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come back ever again.
Nope.
And that's part of what I kind of struggle with that particular piece. I'm like, what? There's been no Irish indications from beginning of this movie to now, and there isn't any at all later.
I mean, at most you maybe get Spanish because of the bullfighting thing, but it's like, here's bagpipes.
Why are the bagpipes in there? And I know it because bagpipes sound amazing.
Yeah.
But it's like you couldn't continue that dynamic
somehow. And for somehow over movies and things like that, bagpipes have been attached to like warriors and combat and things like that. Parade of soldiers and things. It's like bagpipes just appear.
Yeah.
And just think about it, folks, in your movies and things. It happens.
Yeah. And they don't come back.
But I mean, I think maybe it's like this. We're about to step into it when we talk about Duncan Idaho Gurney in this movie, because it's the opposite of way it should be portrayed.
Yeah.
Like, and like this is Lynch got this right in his version with the two characters.
Yeah.
In this version, they flipped them.
Yeah.
So you have Gurney.
Yeah.
Be the straight-laced soldier man.
Yeah.
In this movie, when he's supposed to be the more lax musical man who's friendly with everybody and everybody loves him. In Villeneuve's version, we get Josh Brolin, amazing actor, playing him as the super soldier man.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, that you missed the character.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to, in that scene, he should have had a balisette, which is like a musical instrument they have in this world, with him, because he goes everywhere with it in the books.
Yeah.
And then that's his kind of his thing. I mean, they do have him speaking lines of poetry here and there. Maybe that's them filling in for that, what they're missing out of the books for Gurney.
Yeah.
But then you get Duncan Idaho, who in the books, in the older movie, here's your military man, straight-laced, whatever, good at his job, super capable.
Yeah.
People fear him for a reason.
Yeah.
You get Jason Momoa, who plays him as like the goofy, friendly, oh my boy, and huggy, and not serious at all. And I'm kind of like, I'm like, you should have switched this around. You kind of mixed up the two characters there. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like me nitpicking, but this is them arriving on that planet where you immediately see them where it's like, our Gurney is just ramrod straight near the Duke, protect the Duke, assault everybody kind of thing. Yeah. And then you get like, Duncan comes out of the way, says, hey, my boy, give me hugs and whatever. It's kind of like,
it's a little awkward.
Yeah, it's like, this doesn't fit the characters. You kind of switched them around.
Well, Jason Momoa is a fantastic actor. Like, no questions asked. He's got weight. He's a beast of a man, no question.
Oh, yeah, he's huge.
I think I agree with you on that, because
I would have just liked him seeing him flex and become the straight-laced military dude that Duncan should have been, instead of being the softer.
Right. We see that happen later in this moving when he defends and he sacrifices himself and all that stuff. But there isn't much like serious, like, we know this guy's is going to do what he's going to do and he knows how to do it. I don't know. Choppers are better designed. I like them
the
a lot.
ornithopters look like ornithopters. They actually are just like they're described in the book, which is a good compliment that everybody kind of said, which is like, ornithopters look like ornithopters.
Yes. And then the sword that's given to Jessica has meaning.
Oh, the Kreis
knife. Finally, at last. Sign language again, carries again. It's consistent.
Yep.
Religion is more heavily referenced in this movie than in the 1984 edition, which I appreciate. I'm looking to see in part 2 how that dynamic continues to be explored.
Yes.
Because there seems to be a piece of that deserves more digging into.
Well, because it's a lot of the themes in the book. There's been very religion-based. Yeah. Because he just robbed from every religion and kind of created this huge religious mythos that goes throughout the whole Dune universe.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, all right, Cool, you brought that in.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see this. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see where they take it. The assassin device, nothing really. It's smaller and trickier. He moves using the hologram as cover, which is interesting, and I don't know how I feel about it. But there it is. It's the scene it's in the books. It's in the 1984 edition. It's there.
Where you do with the hunter drone.
So
it's just he in the other versions he doesn't have the thing. He just stands still
and then grabs it when he tries to attack the housekeeper.
Shut out mates. Yeah.
So the scene where the Reverend Mother is in the Baron's court and is plotting, and then activates the silence, which I liked how they said activate silence. It's the cone of silence, whatever. Yeah. The floating here is still awkward. I don't like it.
Yeah,
it's not my favorite. But was the Reverend Mother involved in the books in this process?
No.
Okay, I was weirded out by that. I was like, she doesn't belong here, because they like the Ben Gesserit.
Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, thank you. They plot from the corners and the shadows.
Yes.
They don't actually take part in the plotting. There's less direct involvement and more like they're on the sidelines. They're in the darkness.
For the people that are at home and maybe haven't read the book or whatever, know how deep they go. The Bene Gesserit they're not a religious organization. They feed on the themes of religion a lot, but they're not a religious organization. What they do is they say it in the Villeneuve kind of thing, kind of blatantly, which I didn't like. Yeah. They've been manipulating bloodlines for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, trying to find, kind of like make the ultimate being.
Yeah.
And so that's what they do. So they kind of work themselves in this kind of situation where it's kind of like they're an organization that everybody needs for certain things. Mm-hmm. And they figured out a way to manipulate their own physiology and kind of like, that's why they make such good warriors too, on top of it. And use the voice to manipulate people and all that kind of stuff, because they just worked out how to manipulate other people. Yeah. Like mentally and physically. Yeah. So they that's who they are, and they've worked themselves in this nice little kind of like shadowy position of control. Yeah. That's why they call I think they say it in the Villeneuve version. I don't know if they mentioned it in 1984. And they call her like the Emperor's truthsayer. Yeah. Because the Bene Gesserit can, if you're not a good liar,
they can compel you to tell the truth.
They can read you real easy and compel you to just spill all the beans super easy. Yeah. And our matron that we see she's the peak at the time.
She's the top of the top right now.
So that's who they are. And when this comes around, she's not part of this whole thing that the Harkonnens got whatever. She's more interested in Paul. She's a sideline character with the Emperor. Yeah. And then she shows back up at the end, but whatever. Yeah. In the books, it is another couple that is involved with the Emperor.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that. Yeah.
And the guy is the Bene Gesserit had been making their genetic manipulations for such a long time. The guy in that couple is like a failed version of what Paul becomes.
Oh, yeah, I remember that part. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
So that's super important to kind of remember. Like in the books, you it's laid out for you, but they don't show it anywhere else because it's a super kind of intricate thing that happens, and a mechanism that happens at the end of the book, which is really important.
So the theory is that our director subbed in the Reverend Mother for those two.
Yes.
It does feel a bit of a betrayal though. I don't like that dynamic. I think it does fly straight against the logic of the book and the character of the book.
Because it's important.
The problem is you could introduce those two characters brand new. Yeah. You'd have to build them in, which would again push your run time. Yeah. And so I guess he made the decision okay, we'll put her in here, and it's well,
to kind of tie it all together, because it portrays the character too, because it is important to remember that in the book too is they know after the whole Gamjabar thing, whatever, they kind of know what they have on their hands, sort of. They're not 100% sure. Yeah. With Paul. Yeah. So the Bene Gesserit don't whack him there and don't kill him, don't do anything to him, because the matron mother could have right there. Bloop. Yep. This one's a trouble. Let's throw it to the side. Yeah. But they're like, no, this might be what we need. We think we can control him through the mother. Yeah. Of course, we know that doesn't work out. Yep. But that's what they think at that time. Yeah. So to have her in this movie kind of plotting with the Baron, whatever, to kind of exterminate all the Atreides, and no one really mentions, we need to save the boy. Right. It's kind of like, you're going against your own best interests because you want this boy. You want the ultimate being, but you want it underneath your control.
Right. Yeah, it does. That part of the scene does feel a little weird. Javier Bardem is Stilgar.
I love that actor.
And that is fantastic. I made a note. I said, this movie compels me to watch. Mm-hmm. I want to see where they take these characters. Yeah. I want to see how they tell this story. The worm reveal is terrifying. But Paul is especially stupid in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
And it irritated me because was it like this in the book?
No.
Okay, so that's where I was just like, okay, look, I get it. The spice is affecting him. It's putting people in danger. Okay, whatever. But it's like there's no reason for him to behave that stupidly.
No, he doesn't do that in the book. I mean, he does kind of have some flashes because this is when you get into the nitty-gritty of the book kind of stuff,
right.
And you have to think about the book.
Right.
Every time Paul, before he joins the Fremen and gets massively introduced to the spice and gets kind of hooked on the stuff, every time Paul is kind of like introduced to the spice in any kind of like a major like concentrated way, he starts having flashes and stuff like that because that's what the spice does to you. It's what it's going to do to him.
Yeah.
So in the book, he does have, like, when they open up the ornithopters and they're there, he does have some brief moments, whatever, but it's not a big thing. It's not what we get in this movie, which is really kind of awkward, dumb, where it's like, I'm going to go kneel down on this thing and possibly die.
Right.
No.
Yeah. It felt a bit of a shift away from the Paul that we know and love.
Yeah. So it's happening because he's sitting on this giant pile of spice and it hits him in the face because it's flying up in the air.
Right.
And so you kind of get the visions. Happens in the book, happens here, but here they made him kind of just dumb with his kneeling, whatever. Yeah. Oh, I recognize your footsteps, old man.
Yeah, it was a little too much.
Yeah,
little too heavy-handed, and I was like, okay, well now I. But then he's smarter, so it felt like this moment where like, okay, we're trying to create some tension. I'm like, okay, well,
feel some threat to the main character.
But you know he's gonna live, but it's just kind of like dumb that Paul puts himself in that situation. Yeah. And anyway, so the idea of the connection. So he obviously continues the vision of him and Chani.
Yep.
The idea of their connection and the swerve of being stabbed, but this idea of the knife being important. Yeah. I like that metaphor because it does. The audience has to figure it out a little bit. It's like, okay, well, she's not actually going to stab him. He needs to find that knife, or the knife is important.
Yes.
And so later when he shares with his mom about the whole thing, and she says the knife has importance, she goes, oh, the knife, and that's the knife that was given to her by the housekeeper and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So the element of the traitor is finally here. Dr. Kynes, it's done well enough.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is neither movie deals with the fact in the book the Duke has to treat Jessica like the traitor.
Yes.
And I appreciate that they don't go there because it is a lot of work.
Well, that's part of the whole political chess game stuff that he can outline in the book.
Yeah.
But in the movies, if you're going to, that political chess game, you're going to need to crack this movie into like 3 other movies.
Yeah. It's going to be insanely long. So I like and appreciate the fact that both movies decided to say, you know what, this is too much. Yeah. We're throwing this out, and because it does work, like because you do get the tension of that.
And I also like how they did Keynes in this movie, where it's kind of like in the book when he's introduced to them, it's like, I'm just here to make sure you're playing by the rules.
Yeah.
Because there's grand rules that are established in this universe that aren't explicitly told to us. Yeah. And even in the books, they're not really told to us. We just kind of have to go along with it. And they're kind of explanatory, where it's kind of like, well, due to the high political games and how Atreides won all these other certain things, they got Arrakis now from the Emperor as like kind of like a trap.
Yeah.
But in order to do all that translations, because it's part of this huge big game, there is the Judge of Change from the Emperor who controls all this stuff, who's there to watch.
Yeah.
And so that's who we get Keynes from, and they kind of have that brief little moment where they exchange those things where it's like, I'm not on your side.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be neutral.
Yeah.
So I'm standing here neutral.
Yeah. What I appreciate about, Keynes lives longer in this movie than he did in the 1984 version.
Yeah.
1984, he's dead and gone. Like, it's just like, bomb, bye. And here we're allowed to see the character grow, partially because they're following the book. In the book, Keynes does rescue them and takes them to a facility, and then they have to escape the facility. There was no still suits in the package this time. In the 84 movie, they had the still suits.
Yeah.
Not in this one.
Yeah, I don't know why they
is
did
that true to the book or no?
No, the book they had everything kind of all.
They had the still suits as well. Yeah. Okay, so my theory is because they wanted Kynes to be able to give them the still suits.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I've got them here. Put them on. Escape this way. Whatever. Yada yada yada.
Instead of like, because they kind of glossed over the whole Yui thing in this movie too.
Yeah.
Because he's the great betrayer.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like it has weight. And I kind of skipped over some of that as well because I was just like,
I mean, it's a fair thing because, I mean, in the books, it is a huge betrayal kind of thing, folks. Like what Yui does. Because like he goes against a whole bunch of like conditioning and training that he's been programmed into being a good doctor, whatever, to do what he does to betray the Atreides. Right. So it's a very important thing. Right. And his whole political thing ties in the Jessica being portrayed as a betrayer kind of thing. It's like a big game. Yeah. And well, if you're going to enter into that, you need to explain it, and that's going to take up too much time. So it's kind of like, I get it. It's like, okay, we glossed over.
Well, because they mentioned it in the 84 version. They mentioned we broke his conditioning.
Yes.
And we don't really
with
know
his wife.
Right. We don't really know what that means.
Yeah.
And they talk about the conditioning in the 84 movie a couple more times. I'm like, you haven't explained it, so I don't even know. We're moving on.
Well, I mean, in the book, we only get a brief mention here and there, but yeah.
In the 2021 version, we don't really worry about it.
Well, I mean, because should we explain a little bit, or should I just a little bit? Of like the conditioning that happens to people, because they don't do it really in either of the movies.
Sure.
And it's kind of irritating because, all right, if you're watching this, it's kind of important because you'll see it in the Villeneuve version, which probably most of you have already seen already. Or it's like the man Thufir Hawat. You see him as that big guy that stands with the Duke, and his eyes roll over white. Yeah. And he spits out a whole bunch of numbers and whatever. He's a mentat, which you see that in Peter De Vere's. On the Harkonnen side, he's that super skinny guy whose eyes roll over white and he spits out a whole bunch of numbers, whatever. Yep. Mentats are kind of human computers. Yep. Their brains have been put through a whole bunch of like super training to become human computers to compute just about all kinds of things. And they're kind of like used as like counterintelligence, master of assassins, master of like combats kind of thing because they can compute things so fast. Yeah. This is their substitute in this world for actual computers because you can't have AIs of any sort in this world because of the Butlerian Jihad, which is something mentioned in the book, which computers rebelled against man. Man somehow won that whole conflict. Yeah. I'm told that the son wrote the books about the jihad, but whatever. Shove that to the side for now. Yeah. So it's like, that's why it's like humanity... as Herbert said when he wrote these books and the things, he wanted the story to more focus on humans and what humans can do, inner conflicts between humans versus having robots make everything so much easier and all that kind of junk. Yeah. So that's why we get such a human story out of this. Yeah. So that's what those mentats are. On sideline, kind of attached to them, not the same thing, is those that go through the conditioning, like Dr. Yui, they're made to be like super doctors in a way. Yeah. So that's who he is. He understands poisons, and that's why they have him in the books. They have him calibrating and looking at the poison sniffers and things like that. That's his concern. Yeah. So he understands more biological things in the way that mentats crunch numbers. Yeah. So that's why the little black diamond on all the Yui and the old movie and all that kind of stuff, they have that black diamond because that shows that they've been conditioned to be this way.
Okay. That makes sense.
So that maybe that'll help everybody kind of understand that a little bit more, but especially in Villeneuve's version with the mentats and doctors, because he doesn't explain that at all. No. You just get like a brief moment. It's like, hey, Thufir, what are these numbers? And his eyes turn white, and then he spits out a whole bunch of numbers. Yeah. It's kind of like, all right.
I think I get it better in the 2021 version. Like I understand that dynamic of their human computers because they do the ways that they carry themselves and act. Yeah, because
it's really important in the books, especially in the books. Thufir is like, he's not a main character, but he's mega important. Yes, because I mean they actually like everybody is afraid of Thufir Hawat's brain. Yeah, and they somehow get to him through all the stuff that they're doing. Yep, and so it's a major important thing that happens to him. Yeah. But they just gloss over all that in all the movies and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah.
It would take a lot of time to cover it.
Yeah.
Duncan lives and does this story right. I love his ending. Because does he live in the book?
No.
He dies.
He dead.
Okay, so he's dead in this one.
Well, I mean, if you want to go further in, we can talk about some of the stuff that happens in the future, but whatever. Let's just say things get really complicated where you can bring people back.
Yes.
And it's not a very comfortable way of bringing people back, but it happens to Duncan repeatedly. Right. And it's not a good thing.
Oh, okay. Good note. Paul has sudden knowledge, and it works because you start to understand his abilities and his powers. Yeah. I like how they gave Kynes her ending here because she is able to take her killers with her.
Yeah.
They don't get to escape. They don't get to walk away. They get to die with her. The thumper actually moves.
Yeah.
I love that. It's just doom, doom. And you're like, okay, that's what makes sense. Like, that's how it works. And then so in like a minute later when she's going, you're like, okay, that's why the thumper works the way it does.
Yeah, it creates the rhythmic vibrations that attracts worms.
Yeah. They actually wander for a good long while, so I like that it increases the desperation.
Yeah.
That helps. The sandworm is improved and organic. It's not just kind of a CGI or a green screen effect there.
And a weird model that they had to manipulate.
They do follow the book more closely here with how Paul fights the guy.
Well, I mean, they even have the good thing where he freaks out in the tent with Jessica.
Yeah.
I'm like, good.
Yeah.
You're doing this right.
Yeah. You're telling the story well. You're giving the character credit.
Like, this is like it in the books. It's the hint of the change in Paul.
Yeah.
And here they do this kind of the same thing because this is like almost breaks off, and this is when they in the books they change to chapter 2, which is called Moadib, which is where like he becomes Moadib, whatever.
Yeah.
But like Paul is now like super exposed to the spice. It's really getting to him out here in the wild desert.
Yeah.
All it is just spice basically blowing around and things like that. So it's like really changing him.
Yeah.
And he's starting in the books. It's the huge revelation moment where it's like he just starts seeing all the different timelines and the past at the same time.
Yeah.
And so he starts yelling and screaming stuff at his mom. And there's a huge emotional kind of conflict they have. Yeah. And she realizes like, oh, baby, I did create the thing, and I'm not ready to deal with it.
Yeah.
And he's not ready to deal with it either. Yeah. Because he's having all kinds of issues.
I like that he's not able, he doesn't handle it perfectly.
No.
It's a struggle bus. So the only problem I have, there's two things as we close out the film. The post-killing scene where he killed the guy goes on a little too long. It's a little too much slow motion for me. Look, I get it. Like, it's his first time killing somebody. Like, I'm not discounting any of that. But I just kind of I sat there and went, okay.
Well, they made it clunky. In the book, they explained it pretty quickly where it's kind of like, well, Paul's not used to fighting someone that doesn't use a shield.
Right.
Well, that's an important thing to note that because they don't say it. I don't think they say it in either one of the movies. Whatever. The Fremens don't use shields at all.
Yep.
Because if you use a shield in the high desert, the vibrations it gives off make all the worms
come and eat you
because they go into a frenzy, they say.
Yep.
So imagine a whole ton of those things just going nuts and trying to crush you, kill you, whatever.
Yeah.
They are the kings of this planet, even though you don't really see them that much.
Yeah.
So that's a bad thing. So that's why Fremens don't use shields. Yeah. Paul, all his life, has been taught to fight people that use shields.
Right. Or not kill them.
Yeah, and not really kill. I mean, he's a trained killer. Let's establish that. He is a trained killer. But so he's not really used to that, and he doesn't want to kill this man.
Right.
They didn't really highlight, I mean, they do say it, but they don't really highlight that too well.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens in the books, where a lot of the other people watching the fight, the Fremen, thinks Paul's just toying with this man, who is a fully trained Fremen.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, Paul just hasn't killed anyone ever.
Yeah.
This is going to be his first kill.
So here's where I can disagree. Is as he's fighting him.
Yeah.
As a viewer, I was like, he doesn't want to kill this guy.
Yeah.
Like, he absolutely is trying everything in his power to avoid.
Yeah.
And then the mom saying he hasn't killed anyone.
Yeah, there you go.
That helps us understand. But you do get Paul's reticence with trying. He doesn't want to kill this dude. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to murder somebody. And I think that's in this version, because we don't even see this fight in '84.
Yeah. This is a cool thing too in the book. It's kind of like, this is the clash of the cultures of Fremen versus the clash of culture of what Paul and Jessica know. Yeah. Even though Jessica's kind of piecing it together because the Bene Gesserit did their long-term manipulations on these people.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, Paul doesn't want to kill this guy even though he has to.
Yeah.
And he is also not, because they mentioned it in the book, like he's not used to fighting someone without a shield, so he thinks he has to do that slow move at the end to get to the guy.
Yeah.
But the guy can get away enough that it drags out this fight.
Yeah.
And it's kind of,
Yeah.
And,
So he does kill the guy, and I don't think it's said in the movie yet. We'll probably find out this in part 2, but Chani's husband or Chani's mate was the guy he killed. Remember in the book?
No, it's not his, Chani is not attached to anybody. It is another woman that's married to this guy that Paul, because he kills him, becomes...
Hold on, where's my... No, because Chani, like... That's a revelation in the book.
No, it's not. She's not hooked up with anybody.
Because the death of Jameer or whatever his name was is
Jamis,
Chani's person.
No.
Or something related to Chani. Because that's why, like, it goes, so I now have Chani.
No.
You're right, because there is that other person.
There's the other woman that is, like, has his kids and things.
Right, and he takes, okay, Okay, so he takes on, so Chani's kind of third-wheeling it.
Yeah.
Which is that dynamic. I forgot about that.
Because it's one of those awkward things. In the book, you get it where it's kind of like, okay, clash of cultures kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they're showing us kind of like, all right, because you killed this man, you now took away like kind of like the prime earner for the family.
And now you must hold
that
role.
Now you must take that role. And Paul is like, I'm not down for this because I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
And there's they go through a sequence where he's trying not to offend this woman.
Right.
While trying like, well, that's my wife now.
Yeah.
And they make some workarounds, whatever.
Yeah.
And allows her to move on and marry someone else.
Yeah.
So he can be with Chani, who's his chosen wife.
Yes.
And Chani chooses him, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like no. They're not. Chani's not claimed by anybody.
I forgot about that. Thank you for helping me through that.
That's no problem.
My brain isn't working all that great this morning.
Chani we learn that she's the daughter of Keynes.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that piece. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is going to be interesting given that they gender swapped Keynes in this movie.
Yes.
Versus the book.
Yeah. So
that makes that dynamic a little bit different, and I'm curious.
Just a little bit. We'll see what he does with it.
I'm sure it's fine, but it's also interesting. So I love his statement, "My road leads into the desert." I love that as kind of a final closing.
Mm-hmm.
The sandworm riding scene at the end, I was taken out of the movie. It looked green screen. And I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they just forgot.
I don't think we needed it, really.
I don't think we needed it either. I think it was jarring. It was like, wait, now we're introducing the sandworm riding like in the last 30 seconds of this film. Okay, all right. You had to throw it in there because you want to tease us, I guess.
We should have just like a lot of people thought this like mainstream folks thought this movie ended like in very just kind of like flat disappointment of them wandering off in the desert.
Yeah.
Those of us familiar with the movie, like the book and everything else, knows like, no, this is just the start.
Yep. This is
we just got a nice introduction.
Yeah. This is where things get interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, all right. And I was like, they should have just, here's the scene of them just walking along the dunes out into the deeper desert.
Yeah.
And that's where it cut.
Yep. It could have worked. They could have pulled it would have been a Lord of the Rings kind of way to get us to know we're going to be continued.
I mean, I think there's some weirdness where like people weren't sure if we're going to get a number 2.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of all that kind of stuff. But the way they released this movie and then like when people started watching, I mean, they pushed it back a bunch.
Yeah.
But people started watching it and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we got part 2 coming.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, oh, weird.
Why didn't you have it in the first place?
Yeah, why didn't you just say this is a 2-parter?
Why did you wait for us to say something?
Yeah.
Maybe they were trying to gauge audience interest. I don't know.
So I'm wondering, like, because of the way they did that, just like a Hollywood kind of thing, it's like, is there some other cuts that show a different ending to this movie?
That's a good question. I wonder if that'll come out on DVD or the digital release.
Yeah, because what happens if they didn't get the second movie approved? Did they have some sort of weird alternative ending?
Right.
Did they pull a David Lynch where he had to montage the last 20 minutes?
God, no, please. No.
Yeah, so it's like and we're gonna go into a much weirder territory in this section chunk because, as you said, it's like there's a lot that they have to explain.
Yep,
a lot they're gonna have to walk through.
There's a lot coming,
and we're gonna have to start. You see Paul start becoming like in the books. It's the figure he's afraid of.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you go into that? I mean, this is a very important theme in the books, folks, where it's kind of like Paul is your hero.
Yeah.
But he is reluctant for a lot of good reasons.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see how they play it out. It'll take some time to get the movie made, but Hollywood will work hard because they want to get this. They want good movies on. They want movies that are making money.
I mean, this is probably the best sci-fi movie we've seen, like maybe the past, 10 years or
I would agree.
15 years?
I would watch this movie again.
Yeah.
Like, it's that good because it is, and we've talked about this before as we kind of close this podcast out, like good storytelling, really good storytelling with music, with filming, with cinematography, with all character, like everything, the acting, when it all works, you recognize it. You go, dang, this was good.
Yes.
And this movie, Dune 2021, is a rich, rich mine for a lot of cool interpretation, a lot of cool visuals, a lot of cool music. Just really incredible moments, but not moments that were done just to have those moments.
Yeah.
Like you talk about in Star Trek, and we can go down that road at some point down the road in the episodes, but you talk about Star Trek, new Star Trek movies, a lot of the moments weren't earned. Like they were just thrown in there to mix in the pot and go, yeah, we got it.
And then it's like action scene. We need to just cram in some more action scenes. This is more like here's.
Yeah, in Dune, each moment is earned.
Yep.
Each moment has a reason and affects the rest of the film and has an integral meaning. It's not just we're throwing this in here because the rain looks cool with Jessica standing outside Mother Superior's ship.
Yeah.
No, that's her being an Atreides, being herself, being that resistant. I'm not going to birth you any daughters. I'm only birthing a son because that's what my husband wants, and I'm not going to listen to you. And I'm going to stand. And as your ship leaps off and the wind blows and the stuff, like I am not backing down. That is the beauty of a good film, of good literature work, of good storytelling.
And I love how they don't. He doesn't tell you that.
No,
you're supposed to assume that.
Yeah, you're supposed to interpret.
Yeah, figure it out.
When a director and actors and music and writers and scripters and music, like when everyone allows you to be an intelligent member of the audience.
Yes.
And entrusts you to take that and interpret and question and decide, that's when power is given to the audience.
Yes.
And that's when it works. But when you have movies that like spoon feed you information,
I'm tired of that.
Tell you everything that you need to know. It's like, why would I even watch this? Like that's the issue with the 84. Again, so much front loading. I already know what's going to happen. Yeah. I already know what you're going to do. Like you haven't given me any mystery. Now, obviously, David Lynch was in a bad position because he was forced to do this movie. But like you look at any modern filmmaking that has been like, I haven't watched. Dune 2021 is probably the first new movie I've watched in a very long while. I haven't.
Oh no, we watched the new Ghostbusters.
We did. So Ghostbusters, but again, pretty good storytelling there.
Yeah.
Like not,
Well, I mean, this is the one. Like as I think you just said it. You just said the line really good. It's like he's not. No one's in this movie, unlike others. There's no spoon feeding.
Yeah,
he's making you think it.
Yeah, they're letting you think.
Yeah,
you're giving me the freedom to think.
Yeah,
you're giving me the freedom to interpret. You're giving me the freedom to come up with my own idea, and that's the power of good books, good movies, good everything. You will turn over control once it's finished. You turn over interpretive control to the audience.
Yes,
and that is an incredible experience for an audience member because then you now have the power in the property, and now you can start to say, "Well, I think this and I think that," and you and I might come up with two different explanations. That's the beauty of it. Is I come to the table with my interpretation and my ideas and my background. You come, like every single audience member in a theater comes with their own baggage, their own ideas, and so they're going to walk out of there with maybe 45 to 100 different variations of the interpretation of different scenes in that movie. That is the power of great storytelling.
Yes,
and not a lot of people seem to know that in this day and age.
Yeah, and it's sad to me. Yep. I mean, a lot of people have like made comments where it's kind of like me and you. Sometimes we have different opinions on things, but we're fine with that.
Yeah,
and we move on.
And there should be. You
should be like this.
Yeah, you should have the ability to go, okay, well, I think this is what happened in this scene. Okay, well, here's why I know that. Okay, well, here's what I think, and here's how I know that. Interesting. Two different perspectives, same amount of evidence, just a different interpretation.
Yes, and that's kind of important. And also, like people just losing the ability, like, I'm gonna put this movie out here. Think about it.
Yeah.
And like people have lost that ability to kind of do that.
Yeah.
It's like they want to be spoon-fed.
Yep. We've been checking our brains at the door of the movie theater for far too long.
Yes.
And we're no longer able to say, hey, I need to take that brain with me because I need to be actually thinking in, like, you don't go to a movie to be intellectually challenged, but you go to a movie to have fun and to use your brain and to engage. So we could talk about this for hours upon hours, but our time is coming to an end.
It's just something we both agree on where it's kind of disappointing nowadays. Yeah. Even just regular stories, even books recently have just become very kind of like blah. Don't think about it. Yep. And it's not fun.
I want to think. I want my brain to continue to fire its neurons and do all its work. Okay, well, that was a delightful conversation.
Yeah, I actually had fun like walking through these. Like, I like Dune itself. It's kind of fun.
It is I have most of the book series on my shelf right now to read through. It is a fantastic world. It's built like a Mack truck, and to get into it it's fascinating. And I encourage you to check out books and to look into these long form novels. Because the adult reading world is a fantastic world if you can find the strong books.
Folks it's not easy to get into.
Yep.
Like, I'll being 100% honest, it's not easy to get into, but it's worth it.
Yep.
And like, he's not always going to explain everything. He's going to drop stuff in there that's just kind of like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, all the old sci-fi is like that because they want you to think about it and kind of interpret it. What does this mean to you with all the other hints I've given you about it.
And what does it mean for the rest of us as a future?
Yeah.
And on that delightful bombshell, my name is Aaron.
And I'm James.
And this has been Nerds by Screenlight. I have no idea what's coming up next in the next week or so, but we'll make a decision.
Yeah, we'll hash out in a couple minutes here.
We'll plot
maybe over Arby's.
Nothing matters. Eat Arby's.
Yeah.
And that's our sponsor for the afternoon. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
The raspberry flapovers will be out in a moment. The kitchen is closed.
You've been listening to the Nerds by Screenlight podcast, presented by Create at Morgan Productions, located in Fort Morgan, Colorado, USA. For more information on our production house, other podcasts hosted here, and further details, please visit www.createatmorgan.org. You can find us on Twitter at the handle CreateAtMorgan. Create at Morgan is a school club at Lincoln High School, our alternative education campus in Morgan County. Our sponsor is Aaron DeLay, a language arts teacher at Lincoln. Send any feedback to adelayedteacher@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to our podcast.